Hey folks, this is Vince with Dad's Gaming Addiction, and today we're going to look at Trifecta, a card game for 2 players for ages 8 and up, with the average playtime being about 20 minutes. Your goal in Trifecta is simple: score 3 victory points, and to do that you're going to be playing cards into your own grid that sum up to a value greater than 20 but less than 27. Sounds simple, right? Well, yes and no. Let's take a quick look at what came in the box and how the game is played. Alright, now here's a quick snapshot of the components. Before I get into the cards, I want to make note of the box real quick. As you can see, it's hollow right now because I took out the instruction booklet. The instruction booklet is part of the box. I don't think I've ever seen that in a deck of cards before, but whatever. But to get this back in, you just have to fold it, or try to, there we go, and push it in there like so, and hope it works out. There we go, alright. This is kind of silly, but yeah, you get the idea. Now you'll have a bottom part for the box here, and if I push this down a little bit, that might work better. Okay, but yeah, now the cards would just slide in there, and then this would just fold in into the box like so. So yeah, very strange design, if I may say so, but I guess they're really trying to cut down on production costs with the protection of this box. Anyway, onto the deck of cards. There are a total of 45. You've got 2 of these plus cards, 2 of these suit cards, 2 of these minus cards, and finally you have a deck of playing cards. It's similar to a regular deck of playing cards in that you'll find like number cards like 5s, 6s, 7s, 10s, and you'll see queens and jacks and aces and so on and so forth. But what's different about it is that there are only 3 suits as opposed to 4. As far as game setup is concerned, what you want to do is take one of the plus cards, one of the suit cards, and one of the minus cards, put them in a vertical column like this. You'll want to leave some space on either side. There's going to be a grid belonging to one player and a grid belonging to the other player. It's a 3x5 grid. There's 3 rows here, and there'll be 5 imaginary spaces that'll be here for future card placement. Same thing with the other side. Again, one player will take control of one grid, while the other player will take control of the other grid. The deck of cards is shuffled and 2 is dealt to each player. And I mentioned earlier that there were 2 plus cards, 2 minus cards, 2 suit cards. The extras are simply placed back into the box. Now that got me thinking, why print them at all if you're not going to use them? Well, I did some research into this. I can't be 100% certain, but the Kickstarter rules, the rule book that I found on Kickstarter, were a little different. They actually tasked players with, in setting up the game, forming their own grid like so. So each player had their own grid that they were working off of. And on top of that, players didn't start with any sort of hand. They just simply drew a card and played it as the game progressed appropriately. So yeah, the rulebook that I have says that you want to just place a vertical column in the middle like this, and you'll discard these cards. So in case you're wondering why these exist at all, that's because the rules prior to this indicated that each player would have their own grid. I guess you could play it that way if you want to, but I'm just going to go by what the instructions tell me to do. Now, a player's turn is pretty simple. What they're going to end up doing is first draw a card, and then after that they're going to look at their hand and play a card. They can either play a card onto their own grid or onto their opponent's grid. If they don't want to do any of those things, they can opt to discard their entire hand and draw 2 new cards. If the deck happens to run out, all you can do is just shuffle the discard pile and form a new deck. Now, your goal in Trifecta is going to be trying to create a row of 5 cards on your side of the grid that sum to a value greater than 20 but less than 27. So in this particular case, let's just go ahead and use this as an example. This is an actual gameplay, mind you. This is just an example. 5, 6, 9, Jack, King. And the order is important for reasons I'll explain in a minute. But here, you've got a 5, a 6, a 9, Jack, and King. Now, the way the values work in this game, that the number cards are their own value. So a 5 is a 5, 6 is a 6, a 9 is a 9. The Jack, Queen, and King, Jack, Queen, and King are worth 1 point, and aces are either 1 or 11. In this particular instance, we've got a 5, a 6, it's 11, plus 9 is 20, 21, 22. That is between the 20 and 27 value that we need in order to score a point. In this particular instance, whenever there is a row of 5 cards, you'll check to see if it's been scored, and if it is a valid score, these cards get discarded, and that particular player that owned this particular grid would score a point. Very simple. Okay, so now we know that we need between 20 and 27 points on a particular row in order to score it. If you happen to get 5 cards on a row that doesn't equal between 20 and 27, the cards still get discarded, but you don't score any points. But you're probably wondering, so I just need to throw down cards, right, and hope that they total between 20 and 27. Well, yeah, yes and no. You have to follow rules according to what the current card here is, depending on what row you're putting it in. If you're putting a card on the plus row, for example, that special rule is that you have to put a card down of equal or greater value. With the minus, it's the opposite. You have to put a card down of equal or lower value. If the suit card, you have to play a card of the same suit in order for it to be legal. So in this particular example, let's say it is his turn. He draws a card, takes a look at it. Okay, 6. He'll put a 6 down here. And let's say that the opponent goes, draws a card, looks at it, plays, I don't know, a 7 on his side, whatever. Alright, now it is this turn again. He's going to go ahead and draw a card, look at it, and now in order to put a card down on the plus row, it has to be equal or greater than 6. So he's going to put a 9 down. Okay? Same thing with the minus. Let's say on a future turn he draws, picks up, sees the 10, future turn, draws, picks up, 4. Okay, that's lower than 10. That works. Okay? And if he wanted to put cards down on the middle row, he'd go ahead, draw a card on his turn, look at it, okay, 5. Draw a card on the future turn, look at it. He couldn't put the jack down because it's not the same suit. So he's going to have to put down, say, this 3 or this 2. Those suits match, so that is a legal play. Now before I sign off, I just want to let you know that the ace, the 2, and the king have special abilities when they're played appropriately. When the king is placed on the plus row, that automatically flips the plus card over to the other side and it becomes a minus card. And now both players have to observe the minus side rule or the minus card rule whenever they're playing cards on this particular row. For example, the second player here was doing 7 and 10, and his next card might have been, say, a jack or queen. But now, because this is minus, he has to play a card of equal or lower value than the 10. Same thing with the 2, only in reverse. When you put that on the minus row, what will end up happening is this gets flipped over to the plus side, and now players have to follow the rules of the plus card. Finally, the ace, and the ace does a few different things. You can play it on the plus or minus row, and then any rank after that can be played. It doesn't matter. So in this particular instance, let's move this out of the way. 10, and let's say we put that here. Now normally, in the plus row, the next card that should be played after the 10 is either a 10 or something higher. But with the ace, you can play anything after that. So you could then play a 4, and then 5, and then 6, or so on and so forth. Same thing with this minus row up here. Let's say he puts this ace down up here. Normally he'd have to play a 6, a 5, 4, 3, or 2. But because the ace is down here, that's a wild card. You can play any rank you want after that. So he could put down a king if he wants to, whatever. If played on the suit row, that just takes a place of this particular suit and doesn't do anything else. The next card played after that must be of the original suit played. So you'd still have to play like this particular king suit here or this 2, and so on and so forth. And there you have it, a very brief look at Trifecta. It's important to note that I didn't cover all of the rules found in the manual, but this should just give you a nice general overview as far as how the game is played. Trifecta, as a whole, I think is a pretty good game. It's very quick and easy to play, so I like that. When you're busy, you don't have a lot of time for games like Risk or Power Grid, but anyway. I do like the rule changes compared to the Kickstarter campaign. And again, rules, whenever you're developing a game during the Kickstarter process, rules will tend to change over the course of the campaign, and may even change after the fact while the cards are being printed or the game is being printed, whatever the case is. So that's nothing unusual. But I do like the rule changes because each player having their own grid gives each player more control over what they're doing. But having a centralized grid that both players are working off of, whenever you flip a card from minus to plus or plus to minus, you're affecting both grids, not just your own. So there's actually a little bit more chaos when you're using just one grid. So overall, I like the rule changes. I believe I read in the old rules that players didn't have a hand. They just drew a card and played it. So with actually having a hand now, that gives players more control over what they're putting down. So again, I like the rule changes. Pretty good game. You can check it out on my official website. I have a review out there, www.dadsgamingaddiction.com. If you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel. This is Vince. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.